This holiday season, we turned 5 gallons of molasses into an iconic American mansion, digitally fabricated out of gingerbread. We can't wait to show our full process and the finished product. So let's head to Newport, Rhode Island.
Newport, Rhode Island, and Bellevue Avenue specifically were the place to be, the most fashionable place in this country during the Gilded Age. So the wealthy came here to build their summer cottages, but one of the first houses built here was this one, Chateau Semire. People were wanting to come here to get away from the city, to have a beautiful place to spend the summer. And Newport fit that. The weather was perfect. And they loved yachting and recreational activities. But by the Gilded Age, it becomes very competitive. Women are buying incredible couture gowns in Paris and coming here for the season. Women got into their coaches every afternoon at 3 o'clock to basically parade down Bellevue Avenue and pay visits to other social friends. I want to say it was very competitive between families, but it was also an opportunity for the same class of people to be together.
Chateau Semire was built in 1852, so technically predating the Gilded Age, which began after the American Civil War. However, it was built for the Wetmore family, who were a fixture in the New York 400. It was originally built as a retirement home for patriarch William, who had made his first fortune in the China trade. And this palatial structure ushered in this time period on Bellevue Avenue and stood proudly on prime real estate for those years. The structure was built as a personal home, yes, but it also represents an intersection of the peak of technology and craftsmanship at the time. Every detail on the interior and exterior of this home was intentionally selected, and money wasn't really an object. This includes entirely hand-carved rooms, sculpture, tile work, stained glass, leather wallpaper, gilding, all of which also needed to arrive intact, sometimes from oceans away on Bellevue Avenue, to be assembled in the right order for the building to exist as it is.
There's a mirror in this ballroom, and it's absolutely sensational because it's so large. And I often look at that mirror and think it had to arrive at the port and then get up here on dirt roads without being dropped or cracked. It was so unusual to have a mirror that size in 1852 because they only had small mirrors, but now they had the technology to make bigger pieces of glass, and that glass is very thick. So on its way from Philadelphia, it actually stops in New York City where it's on exhibit. And people came to see that mirror.
And that mirror is just one element. Every single detail in this home has a story behind it of similar grandeur. A craftsperson or artisan who was executing a vision. There were no power tools at the time, so it often also took a lot of physical strength. The Gilded Age ended in 1914 with the introduction of income tax, but these homes still stand as relics of the unique time period in American history. And as reminders of the families that once occupied them, yes, but also as unique fortress-like time capsules preserving huge collections of incredible feats of human artistry and craftsmanship that outlasted many of the family fortunes and the era itself. This holiday season, we're going to build Chateau Semire out of gingerbread because, well, why not? With our work cut out for us, we headed back to the workshop where a special delivery was awaiting our arrival. When Grandma says she's going to help make a gingerbread house, she's not kidding. This is 5 gallons of molasses, and it's heavier than you'd expect. I mean, maybe not. It sounds pretty heavy, honestly. I can smell it. It smells good. It smells like Christmas. Oh! Okay. That's the most amazing thing I've ever seen. Oh, love it. Okay. I don't want to get too distracted by this because there's a lot of baking to do. So I have a recipe honed in from the gingerbread house I did last year that I know laser cuts really, really well. So I'm going to get to making sheets and sheets and sheets of that. I'll write the recipe down in the information of this video if you want to give it a try. It's got a soft, greasy, clay-like texture that rolls out really nicely, and there's a lot of Crisco and molasses in there, and I think that's what makes it so this will laser cut so nicely, because not all recipes that I've tried laser cut very well. This one does. On the laser, we're gonna need a consistent thickness of material, otherwise we can't expect very good laser cuts. So I'm going in with a rolling pin that has these spacers on it, and I'm going with a 1/4 inch thickness, and I'm rolling this out to the size of a cookie sheet. And I'm rolling this between 2 sheets of parchment. The recipe is much too sticky to roll out without that, and I don't want to add flour because that might mess with the texture. It comes out of the oven, it's still flexible when it's hot, but as it cools down, it's going to be hard as brick. So I started November 1st, and I just baked and baked and baked. And we stored these sheets in our wood kiln to make sure that they'd stay nice and hard and stiff and not just get soggy, I guess. So now that I have this nice pile of raw material building up, it's time to start working on the design, which will involve a lot less molasses, but a lot more rulers and computers. So something that's kind of cool is that a survey was done of Château-sur-Mer in the 70s as part of the Historic American Buildings Survey, and all of it's available on the Library of Congress website. I will be taking full advantage of this resource, and I'm sketching a pattern one side at a time. I also started a lettering system early on because there's just so many sides and I want to make sure I can keep everything straight. It goes A, B, C, D, E, F, G, the whole alphabet around the home counterclockwise. So it'll be a little bit easier to see everything in 3D and then also be able to translate that back to the 2-dimensional pattern if changes need to be made. I was also able to pull a lot of details directly off these architectural drawings, and I'm lettering and numbering all of the details too. This example here is a window frame that goes on the E panel, so this piece is now called E1. And here's the full first draft. This I'm kind of considering like my quick rough sketch, if you will, and I'm going to cut it out of cardboard and see how I did. I'm doing the first drafts a smaller scale than the finished one is going to be. A unique challenge about recreating this home is that there's very few exterior walls that go directly from point A to point B. It's a lot of jutting in and jutting out. There's very few squares and even complete rectangles. Like oftentimes a wall seems like it's going to close around to a rectangle in the floor plan and it just doesn't. One wall that's just a little bit off isn't a big deal, but a bunch of little pieces that are all just a little bit off is going to result in a shape that isn't recognizable. Okay, so the basic shape is there. It's pretty good, I think, but I want to do another version still, and we have drone footage from the actual mansion site where we circled and circled the building, and now each side is lettered, so I'm gonna watch that drone footage and pause at each angle, and I'm gonna sketch any extra details that I want to get on here, because it's a really ornate mansion. That's part of what makes it itself. It's impossible to get all the details, but I want to include as much as I can. One reason for the interesting exterior is that it was worked and reworked at different points in time by different Wetmore family members and different architects.
The house really, as you approach it, looks very massive. It's a strong building. It's made of Fall River granite that was barged here to Newport. The original house was an Italianate villa with a tower and an arched entranceway. So that was the 1852 house. When the son, George, decides to enlarge the house, he uses Richard Morris Hunt. Well, he has to work within this framework of the granite. He softens the design a little bit by a low mansard roof, Second Empire style.
Second Empire style was more on trend in the 1870s. The son was modernizing the look of his home.
One of the main features they added was a porte cochere, and they eliminated the entrance to the original entrance to the house. But they didn't eliminate that entrance very quickly because the butler had to answer both doors for a while.
Now I'm going to use those rough sketches to update my pattern. I was expecting to need to do a lot more versions before I was comfortable diving in with the gingerbread, but I don't know. I'm feeling really good about this. We did think to print out a blueprint, though, that's the same scale that we're doing the finished house in, as like a safety net of sorts. I don't know. We'll be able to put our sides up against this and know pretty quickly if things start going wrong. The first thing we're doing to each sheet of gingerbread when it hits the laser is engraving the granite pattern in, and each panel of engraving takes about an hour and a half. This isn't a fast process, but I'm really happy with the result, so I feel it's worth it. And then after the engrave, we can go through and cut each lettered piece out of gingerbread. This is a 150 watt CO2 laser, and I'm doing this on 35% power, 10 speed, 3 passes to get a nice clean cut. The settings are going to vary though laser to laser, so you're going to want to hone those in yourself if you try to do something like this at home. And we were really, really happy with the effect we were able to get on this gingerbread. This looks really mansion-like. The Fall River granite that the mansion was built with is such a grand material that has such a massive presence. We wanted to try to capture that, and we feel like we did pretty good here. As these are coming off the laser, we're immediately labeling them with their letter on the backside. Here's letter E. These cuts have box joints on them also, and my cardboard prototypes did not. And that's because I'm adding the box joints individually to each piece as I go. Just easier to look at one little bit than the whole thing. And then if I mess up too, I just mess up one piece, not all of them. I really don't want to blow through the gingerbread sheets because they take a really long time to bake. Not very good.
Hi everyone, it's Michael. I'm sitting at my computer today because I'm designing some 3D printed brackets. These will help in the assembly process and also help keep everything together as we move it around. I designed a couple of different types of brackets in Onshape and then sent it over to the 3D printer.
While he did that, I got icing down on some of the layers of those granite pieces so that I figure if the icing has time to harden before the walls go up, that's way better because then they won't go slipping around on us. And I also baked some extra thin sheets of gingerbread. And I cut out of these extra thin sheets extra small little details for all the different walls too. So same idea, we can get these glued down now so that the icing hardens before they're slipping down off a vertical wall. I'm cutting out a whole bunch of these window details. They're all different sizes because the windows are all different sizes, and these are going to sit above the windows. And making them raised like this, I think, is going to add a lot more dimension in comparison to just having engraved them into the gingerbread, for example. There's a lot of windows, and they're ever so slightly different, but I really like how these sides are looking with all the layers. I think it looks a lot like the original mansion. To ice this together, we were thinking caulk guns filled with royal icing. What else, you know? We filled 7 of them and got a whole bunch of the 3D printed brackets ready to go. And these brackets are going to go on the top and the bottom to make sure it's really nice and square. Then we can put royal icing on the seam, and you're not going to see the royal icing from the outside because the box joints over it, but there's a whole lot of it on the inside, keeping it nice and strong. Royal icing hardens like a brick. I tried a couple different things just to see, but I kept coming back to this just because it's hard as a rock. We're going to be building layers on top of this too, which might get kind of heavy, so I just don't want to take any chances. I also want to take a moment to note that the top brackets are going to be popping off once the icing hardens. They're just for now. We're building this on a small scale out of a cookie with the help of modern technology and CNC machines, and it's been difficult to keep everything square. We've found ourselves often thinking about how the original mansion went up. It was built in the 1800s. There were no power tools, and it was huge, and it's granite.
It's really remarkable when you think of some of the sizes of the building materials, how they came from the harbor all the way up here. And it was strong male labor and hoisting ropes. So they did have contraptions that would work as a crane, but it used a lot of human strength also.
I think our little brackets and royal icing are cute, but it's not even a fraction as impressive as human-powered cranes. When we started this project, we didn't know for sure where the final mansion was heading, but we learned right about now that this is actually going to get to be in the Marble House Mansion in Newport for the month of December. Really exciting news. So we want to make a couple changes just to accommodate. So the concern is that it fits through a door. We have a garage bay right there, so it'll like go out there no matter what. But when we get to the mansion, we have no idea if this needs to fit through a door or not. Like, we know where it's going. But like, we don't know. It's like got big doors, but like we got worried that we'd show up and then not be able to like get it in, you know?
Well, the servants' quarters might not all be big doors though.
I feel like
it's going to the kitchen.
Yeah, so like the servants' quarters might have narrower doors, if anything.
In theory, there's a loading bay to the kitchen, but who knows?
If there's a loading bay to the kitchen, do you think it's like available? We don't know.
Yeah.
That's the whole point.
Why wouldn't it be available?
I don't know.
It's a door. The door is open.
This is a good point.
When I say loading bay, I mean like big door.
I know what a loading bay is.
No, I don't mean like garage door. I mean like big door.
Structural integrity was always important, but it's extra important now. So in addition to all this royal icing, keeping this structure up, the 3D printed brackets that Michael did have a little screw hole in them. So this is getting screwed directly into the board it's on. I don't know if this counts as cheating or not, but this needs to get transported, and we just don't want to risk this falling down. We want a secure gingerbread mansion here. Do you think we put enough icing on it? I think this isn't falling down. No way, Jose. So I baked a bunch more gingerbread to laser cut these caps for a base for the roof to go. This isn't that exciting of a step, but this actually took a lot of effort, and it's going to give us a sturdy base to build up off of. The roof is pretty crazy looking, so we can't think of a better way to do this other than good old-fashioned woodworking techniques and going off reference photos that I took from our drone footage. So here goes nothing. The very top section of the roof is not an angle people see that often, so we decided not to get too hung up on the details, but we laser engraved some extra burned sheets of gingerbread to kind of match it. So now they have walls up and a roof. It's almost time for candy, but there's a couple of details that are going to go on before the candy that deserve their moment to shine. We have this front bay window that was the original entrance to the home that I think is fairly distinct. I'm not gonna be able to get window panes in every window, but I wanna make sure I got the window panes correct on this window because it's kind of a key detail. Look at that. Looking great. And then we talked briefly about the porte cochere, but we're going to talk about it again because it's my favorite detail on the whole home. It looks right out of a fairy tale. I first built the structure of it out of thicker gingerbread, and I traced the shape off of photos of it. And then out of thinner gingerbread, I cut these stone columns and also traced the exact stone patterns so that the same engravings are on little mini columns. And then one last detail before getting the candy down is to deal with this board. Painting it with this gold paint I found just sitting in one of the lockers. I thought, like, Gilded Age, gold paint, I thought it worked. I thought it looked good and festive. And now it's candy time. I'm not really sure what to get, but I think these look pretty good. I bought off the store. I just didn't want to run out. Okay, I'm really nervous about adding candy to this because my digital fabrication skills are a lot more practiced than my cake decorating kind of skills, and I don't want to bring down the overall finished quality here. I also spent like hours adding engravings to this. I don't really want to like cover with M&Ms or something. I love M&Ms, but like, you know. These split perfectly in half, which is nice and precise, which I like. And I figured out that if I cut off the like sugary part, it then can stick to the other cut off part of the sour belt next to it, and then it's like looks really seamless. So I thought this was nice trim for the roof. The real roof has a copper trim going on, so this is sort of a subtle nod to that. Very subtle nod, but a nod nonetheless. And then after I got the sour belt secured, I added Tic Tacs under the overhang. Also a subtle nod to the original house. And I'm just going to repeat this until it goes all the way around. I don't really know. I don't want to add too much candy to this because I don't want to. I feel like I'm already pushing my skill level on this one, and I just don't want to do too much and then regret it. So on that note, everyone say hi to our daughter Sarah. She is really good at decorating cakes and had the idea to use rice paper on the gingerbread mansion. The mansion has a wraparound porch on it with a roof that matches the main roof. But there's lots of photos of this with a green and white striped roof as well. There must have been a renovation. That gave me the idea to do this green and white stripe because I think it's kind of festive, but still a nod to the original. Sarah's got a real steady hand, so she handled painting green stripes onto the rice paper using green food coloring. Then I could pop each piece into the laser cutter and cut my awning pattern out of it. Cuts really fast because it's rice paper. And then there's a ridge in the gingerbread porch already there, so this just pops in and pressure fits into place with that nice curve, just like the original. I'm just gonna take my sweet time individually adding all these Tic Tacs and sour belts. But while I do that, let's talk a little bit about what the holiday season looked like on Bellevue Avenue. Most of the homes here were built specifically as summer cottages. So the families that owned them spent their holiday seasons elsewhere in New York City or just somewhere else. Chateau-sur-Mer, however, was built as a year-round residence from day one. It was built as a retirement home, remember, for William, who eventually passes it to his son, George, and his young wife. The couple makes their renovations to the home and then moves in full-time. They even have 4 kids. But the bigger point is that Christmases were, in fact, celebrated here.
There are photographs upstairs that show the girls in muffs and dressed up on a wintry day. So, you know, I'm sure as the season approached, the excitement of what a gift they might get.
The traditions were similar, but not as established yet in the United States at the time. Certain things were the same, though, or the early versions of present-day American Christmas traditions.
So this was a very Christian family who celebrated holidays and churchgoers, so there would have been the celebration of Christmas in this house. Plus, he had his children, and parents want to delight their children at Christmas time. Tokens and treasures given to each other would have happened for a family like this. They were a very close family, George and his 4 children and his wife. They would have carried on those traditions. A very big spirit of charity in this house. So to give to the less fortunate, that would have been part of their season also. Caroling, music, singing, playing the piano and being together and singing songs.
I wonder what they'd think about gingerbread if they were here today. So, finish the gingerbread house.
It's moving day.
We have to get it to Newport. This one. We're heading to Marble House, another mansion protected by the Newport Mansion Preservation Society. This home was also designed by Richard Morris Hunt about a decade after he worked on Chateau-sur-Mer for William and Alva Vanderbilt. As their summer cottage, I don't know if quaint's quite the word I'd use, but cottage is in fact the historical term for it. This is being displayed in the kitchen here as part of the holiday display.